Welcome back to Monroe Tutoring, and if it's your first time, well, just welcome. We're going to jump right in and we're going to talk about molarity today. And let's start off with the definition. What is molarity? Well, we use a capital M to represent it, and so molarity is defined as the moles of solute over the liters of solution. So in other words, it's measuring concentration of a particular solute in a solution. And so if we take the example of salt and water, and we wanted to know the molarity of sodium chloride, which is table salt, in water, we would take the quantity of moles of sodium chloride and we would just divide that by the liters of solution. So we can do a really easy problem, something along the lines of, let's just say if we had, I always seem to use 0.231 moles, and let's do sodium chloride, and let's say that that is going to be dissolved in enough water to make 500 milliliters of solution. So let's just see, 500 milliliters of solution. Now, sometimes they may just say in 500 milliliters of water. And in that case, we can kind of assume that when you add this much salt to the water, it's not really going to change the final volume of the solution. It's just going to remain the 500 milliliters. But they really should phrase it as being enough water to make 500 milliliters of solution. That'd be the most correct way to phrase it. But as we know, questions aren't always phrased in the best way. So now, what do we do with this information? They gave us moles of a solute, and they gave us the volume of the solution. And so if we look at the definition of molarity, they're asking us for molarity in this question, by the way. So let me just write that somewhere. Capital M is equal to question mark, right? That's what the question is asking. What is the molarity of 0.231 moles of sodium chloride dissolved in enough water to make 500 milliliters of solution? So we just take our definition here and we're going to plug these things in. So molarity is going to be equal to the moles of the solute. Sodium chloride is the solute. That's the thing that gets dissolved. And so the solute gets dissolved into the solvent, which would be water in this case, to make the solution, okay? So those are some terminologies, some terms that you're gonna need to know, okay? So molarity is equal to the moles, so that's 0.231 moles. And we can write sodium chloride here if we want to, but there's only one compound in question, so it's not that necessary in this case. And then on the bottom, a relatively common mistake would be for students to just throw the 500 mils down there, 500 milliliters, but remember, it has to be liters of the solution, so we just have to do a quick conversion. And you do need to be familiar with the metric system, so you'd have to know that there's 1,000 milliliters in a liter, so we just divide this by 1,000. In other words, we move this to the left 3 times, and so we're going to get this as 0.500 liters, and now we just throw that on the bottom. So we have 0.500 liters, and then we would just do this math. Now, if we're dividing by 0.5, that's the same as multiplying by 2. So our molarity is just going to come out to 0.462, and that's molars of sodium chloride. All right, guys? So that is kind of the most basic version of this problem. Now, what if they gave us grams? They could have given us grams of sodium chloride, and then we would have to do that conversion first, okay? So check out my videos on doing conversions between moles, mass, and molecules. I have one on that. I have one on molar mass. So if you check that out, then you can just combine these two things. We can just take the mass, convert it to moles, and then use the volume that they give us to get the answer in molarity. All right, guys? So this is a quick one. I'm going to do more problems with molarity in the next one. Other types of problems where they give you the volume or and they give you the molarity and they want the moles and vice versa. So check that out, and I'll see you guys over there.